propose qu'on démarre pour cette session consacrée à l'e-commerce européen, sur comment réussir son e-commerce européen, et pour laquelle j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir tout un panel d'intervenants internationaux qui viennent des quatre coins de l'Europe, et je les en remercie d'avoir fait le déplacement jusqu'à nous aujourd'hui pour parler un petit peu de ce sujet. Alors brièvement, je suis Jean-Rémy Gratado, je suis délégué général de l'Axel, et vous le savez peut-être, l'Axel est très impliqué sur les problématiques de développement international du e-commerce depuis plusieurs années, à la fois à travers des publications dont la première remonte à 2008 sur l'Europe, une opportunité pour l'e-commerce, une autre qui a été consacrée au même sujet 4 ans plus tard, en 2012, sur l'e-commerce transfrontière, une autre sur la distribution. Et depuis un petit peu plus d'un an, l'Axel a rejoint l'association européenne l'EMOTA, dont la secrétaire générale Suzanne Čech est ici aujourd'hui, et qui nous dressera un panorama de l'e-commerce européen vu depuis Bruxelles et puis vu depuis les aspects réglementaires. Alors, avant qu'ils ne se présentent et avant même de leur donner la parole, aujourd'hui, donc, par-delà le cadre de nos associations Axel et EMOTA, on a le plaisir d'accueillir James Roper, qui est le président et fondateur de l'IMRG, qui est l'association e-commerce anglaise, Christoph Wenk-Fischer, qui est le directeur général du BVH, qui est l'association e-commerce allemande, Johan Eriksson de l'association suédoise e-commerce également, et puis deux business case e-commerce, l'un très connu désormais en France, Showroom Privé, avec Thierry Petit, son cofondateur, et Jørgen Bodmar, qui est le fondateur de Scandinavian Design Center, un site consacré aux objets design et au mobilier scandinave, qui est également très impliqué dans le cross-border depuis plusieurs années et qui viendra nous en faire part. Alors, pour dire quelques mots sur la manière dont va se dérouler l'après-midi, nous commencerons par deux interventions qui seront en français, celle de Suzanne Čech et celle de Thierry Petit, qui présenteront des slides en anglais. Puis nous glisserons doucement mais sûrement vers des présentations en anglais, puis des échanges lors du débat qui seront en anglais. Donc voilà, donc, vous êtes prévenus, il y aura une transition douce depuis le français vers l'anglais. On va donc commencer en douceur avec le cas de l'EMOTA et la présentation du e-commerce en Europe. Suzanne, est-ce que tu veux venir? Oui, ce sera plus simple pour les slides.
Voilà, donc merci pour l'introduction. Effectivement, j'ai promis à Jean-Rémy, je vais faire cette présentation en français, et j'espère que vous ne devez pas déjà avec moi glisser vers l'anglais, parce que je commence après quelques minutes de mélanger les mots français avec les anglais, etc. J'espère que ça ne va pas arriver. Je vais vraiment faire un effort. Je suis très, très enchantée d'avoir cette opportunité d'être parmi vous. Et je veux bien vous présenter un panorama des développements du commerce électronique en Europe. Mais avant ça, je veux bien vous présenter notre association. EMOTA, c'est l'acronyme pour Multi-Channel and Online Trade Association. Bien évidemment, c'est beaucoup trop long, donc on a pris l'habitude de toujours utiliser l'acronyme EMOTA. EMOTA représente les intérêts du commerce électronique à niveau européen, mais l'association est bien plus âgée déjà que le commerce électronique, je dirais. Elle a été créée il y a plus de 3 décades déjà. À l'époque, c'était pour la représentation des, je crois que vous l'appelez en français les VADistes, c'est bien ça? Les commerçants qui vendent à distance. Et maintenant, surtout dans les pays très développés, c'est maintenant pratiquement migrer vers le commerce électronique. Mais il y a toujours beaucoup de différences à niveau européen et je vais vous montrer tout à l'heure. Nous avons 16 membres dans 15 pays. Nous avons deux membres en Allemagne et c'est pour ça qu'on a 16 membres en 15 pays. Et l'Axel, comme Jean-Rémy l'a déjà dit, est notre membre français. Donc, on est tous des membres ici. Nous sommes basés à Bruxelles, je devrais aussi dire ça, parce que Jean-Rémy a dit, je vais vous raconter un peu l'aspect l'e-commerce vu de Bruxelles. Donc, la croissance de l'e-commerce en Europe est impressionnante. Selon les chiffres que nous avons collectés et les estimations faites, on est à une croissance moyenne de 20% en Europe. Ça veut dire un chiffre d'affaires de 300 milliards. Et avec ce chiffre, on a déjà dépassé les États-Unis, ce qui est vraiment génial. C'est vraiment un très bon résultat. Mais il faut aussi voir, j'espère que c'est assez lisible, oui. Il y a la région de l'Asie qui est en forte croissance aussi. Il y a une croissance de 36%. Et ce qui est ici ROV, c'est Rest of the World, aussi une croissance de 44%. Donc il ne faut pas maintenant dire « nous on est très bien, on peut se reposer ». La concurrence est là. Il faut vraiment avoir un œil sur ces développements. Et on en a encore entendu ce matin lors d'un déjeuner-débat au Parlement européen, un membre du Parlement espagnol dire que le future is digital et il est très préoccupé pour le fait que l'Europe a tendance à être un peu lent. Donc, mais les chiffres sont quand même donnent lieu à de l'optimisme. Ici, vous pouvez voir que déjà les trois grands marchés, le marché britannique, français et allemand, font un chiffre d'affaires de plus de 60% de l'e-commerce en Europe, suivi par les pays scandinaves. Donc vous voyez aussi, il y a un énorme potentiel de développement sur les marchés de l'Est de l'Europe et du Sud de l'Europe. Déjà pensez Russie, nous avons aussi un membre en Russie. Avec ses 142 milliards d'habitants, il y a un potentiel énorme de développement. Quelles sont les tendances? Ça, c'est une tendance que c'est en France et aussi dans les autres pays européens. Le client est le roi. Et ça, plus que jamais. Il y a des mots anglais pour ça, je vais essayer de les vous trouver. Les consommateurs cherchent des informations sur Internet. Ils sont très très bien informés quand ils font leurs achats. Déjà, ils cherchent des bonnes affaires, ils ont ces possibilités, ils peuvent comparer les prix et la concurrence est à un clic de souris à côté. C'est le couch commerce. Donc, vous êtes sur votre canapé, vous surfez, vous avez les concurrents tous l'un à côté de l'autre. Si vous n'aimez pas l'offre, vous êtes très vite à côté. Et ce qui est aussi très important à y penser, c'est s'il y a une mauvaise expérience, parmi les médias sociaux, parmi les possibilités de communication qu'on a aujourd'hui, c'est tout de suite, ça fait le tour du monde, du globe. Donc, c'est très important. Et une autre tendance aussi, le mélange des canaux. Il y a le web to store, il y a les consommateurs qui cherchent des informations sur l'Internet et après ils vont dans le magasin pour faire l'achat. Il y a vice-versa, le showrooming, c'est les consommateurs, ils cherchent des renseignements dans les magasins et après ils font un achat online. Ça, c'est le cauchemar pour l'instant des magasins, mais c'est comme ça. Il faut être préparé et savoir gérer ce comportement changé des consommateurs. Ça, c'est très important, mais aussi très important, plus il y a le développement des instruments, devices, technical devices, mobile devices, des tablettes, des iPads, plus aussi les gens vont utiliser ou utilisent déjà ces aides digitales pour faire leurs achats. Donc le mélange des canaux, ça se fait déjà beaucoup selon le développement de l'infrastructure du pays et de l'accessibilité à l'Internet, mais ça va se faire de plus en plus. Alors, comme on est un panel international, on va parler du e-commerce transfrontalier. Et ici, il y a encore un souci, au moins du point de vue du législateur européen. Il y a une but assez ambitieuse qui est, en 2015, 50% des consommateurs devraient acheter en ligne et 20% des consommateurs devraient acheter en ligne dans un autre pays de l'Union européenne. Maintenant, on est déjà en 2013, ça veut dire en 2 ans, on devrait y être. Et concernant les achats en ligne, on est déjà assez proche, selon les derniers chiffres de l'Office européen de données, Eurostat, on est déjà à plus de 40% de citoyens européens qui font des achats en ligne. Mais quand il s'agit du transfrontalier, je vois un peu noir, on est à 10-11%. Donc là, vous pouvez voir sur ce slide, il y a encore bien du travail à faire. Je crois qu'on ne va pas y arriver. Et il y a quand même aussi ici des différences. Et ça, je veux bien aussi. Vous voyez ici Benelux, par exemple, au milieu, les pays scandinaves. Pourquoi est-ce que le chiffre est si élevé ici? Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de commerce transfrontalier entre ces pays. Il y a certains liens culturels et des langues similaires. Donc ici, le commerce électronique transfrontalier est déjà beaucoup plus développé que s'il n'y a pas ces liens. Ça, c'est certainement un fait. La même chose se passe entre l'Autriche et l'Allemagne, par exemple, l'Irlande et le Royaume Uni. Ici, vous avez déjà un trafic beaucoup plus intense. The killjoys. Ça, en français, je crois, on appelle celui qui empêche qu'on tourne en rond, c'est ça? Ou le rabat-joie. Les rabat-joie. Quels sont les rabat-joie pour le transfrontalier? Donc, la liste est assez longue. Déjà, il y a des différentes règles qui gèrent les contrats avec le consommateur. Ça, maintenant, déjà, vous saurez certainement, il y a déjà une nouvelle directive qui est en train d'être transposée en loi nationale, qui devrait aider pour qu'il n'y ait plus cette barrière, mais on n'y est pas encore. Et il reste à savoir comment les États membres vont transposer cette directive. Donc, il y a toujours, pour l'instant, cette difficulté pour les marchands qu'il y a des différentes lois qui s'appliquent à des contrats avec des consommateurs. Après, vous avez toujours des différentes règles concernant la protection des données. Vous avez des différents systèmes de paiement et les systèmes ne sont pas compatibles. Et ça aussi, c'est très difficile, surtout les attentes aussi des consommateurs, par quelle méthode de paiement ils peuvent régler leurs achats. Par exemple, ici en France, je crois que la carte bleue est assez commun comme moyen de paiement. Il y a le marché hollandais où l'attente, c'est qu'on peut utiliser le système IDEAL, c'est un online banking system très reparti. En Danemark, c'est le Dankort, c'est aussi un système de paiement. Les consommateurs britanniques, je crois, n'ont aucun problème de payer avec la carte bancaire aussi. Les Allemands autrichiens s'attendent plutôt à avoir leur parquet et après pouvoir régler par transfert de banque. Donc, c'est très difficile pour un marchand de pouvoir répondre à toutes ces attentes. Et ici aussi, il y a maintenant des travaux, à niveau européen, je vais vous montrer sur mon prochain slide. Mais voilà, déjà, pour finir cette liste des rabat-joie, le risque de fraude, l'incertitude de la transaction en général, le risque de ne pas être payé, les délais plus longs de livraison, les frais de livraison qui sont plus élevés. Après, vous avez aussi encore des différentes langues, bien évidemment, et des différentes monnaies. Nous, on est en zone euro, mais ce n'est pas du tout le cas partout. Et après, aussi, l'organisation du after-sale service, qui est beaucoup plus compliqué s'il y a les distances et s'il y a des différences linguistiques et de mentalité. Ça joue aussi un grand rôle. Et complaint handling, comment vous pouvez aider si quelque chose ne va pas comme c'était prévu. Donc c'est vraiment et ça, ce n'est pas une liste exhaustive, il y a plus de barrières, mais ça, c'est déjà pas mal. Et donc l'Union européenne, bien évidemment, et ce n'est pas nouveau en principe, depuis longtemps, elle travaille à harmoniser le cadre réglementaire. Il y a la directive protection de données qui date déjà de 1995 et celle vente à distance de 1997. Donc c'est vraiment, ça fait déjà longtemps qu'on essaie d'harmoniser les règles. Il y avait la directive service de paiement 2007, la directive commerce électronique 2000. Pourquoi je vous les montre, c'est pour pour rappeler que la Commission européenne fait déjà depuis longtemps un effort de réduire les barrières, les rabat-joie que je vous ai montrés avant. Mais de toute évidence, ce n'était pas assez. C'est pour ça qu'on est toujours à ces 10% en moyenne de cross-border traffic. Et donc, il y a une nouvelle vague maintenant de projets réglementaires qui sont dans la pipeline. Il y a une nouvelle directive consommateur que je viens de mentionner déjà, qui est en train d'être transposée, qui devrait déjà aider à améliorer la situation. Il y a une proposition pour un droit commun de vente. C'est très, très discuté. C'est surtout les États membres au niveau européen qui sont très contre ce projet. J'ai l'impression qu'il y a trop de peur que de la part des gouvernements nationaux, que Bruxelles veut interférer trop dans le droit national civil. Donc, pour l'instant, on ne sait pas encore quel sera le sort de cette directive, mais elle est toujours sur la table, elle est pour l'instant en première lecture au Parlement européen. Après, il y a un nouveau plan d'action pour commerce électronique avec beaucoup de mesures qui visent tous à améliorer, à encourager les marchands à vendre au-delà de leurs frontières, des frontières de leur pays de résidence. Une nouvelle proposition de règlement pour les protections de données qui est aussi, pour l'instant, très, très discutée à niveau européen, parmi les membres du Parlement, mais aussi parmi les États membres. On ne sait pas encore si, dans cette période législative, ils vont encore arriver à pouvoir adopter ce règlement. Là, surtout, l'idée, c'était moderniser le cadre réglementaire. Comme je vous ai dit, la directive, elle date de 1995, donc il y avait tellement de modernisation, il y avait tous ces progrès technologiques, il y avait une grande crainte qu'elle n'est plus up-to-date, qu'il faut absolument l'adapter aux besoins d'aujourd'hui. Après, la Commission européenne regarde aussi sur le marché de la livraison, surtout quand il s'agit des envois de colis cross-border. Ça, c'est pour l'instant en discussion aussi. Et une révision de la directive service de paiement. Aussi, un peu sur le background que j'avais dit, les systèmes ne sont pas compatibles. Il y a beaucoup de bons systèmes déjà en place à niveau national, mais quand on veut les utiliser à l'échelle internationale, cela ne marche déjà pas. Et la Commission travaille sur des lignes directrices pour les sites de comparaison de prix. Voilà, ça c'était le premier overview pour aider à lancer un peu la discussion, pour vous encourager de poser des questions sur ces sujets. Merci pour votre attention. Je n'ai pas migré vers l'anglais, j'ai fait tout en français. Voilà, merci.
Et tu as mérité un verre d'eau. Bravo. Alors, quand on regarde, merci Suzanne pour cette présentation du contexte un petit peu européen. Alors, quand on regarde l'ensemble, effectivement, on a tendance à penser qu'on peut s'adresser à une zone entière en matière d'e-commerce. Et puis, dès qu'on regarde un petit peu plus près, et ta présentation l'a très bien fait, on voit qu'il y a un certain nombre d'obstacles et des obstacles de taille. Alors, tout de suite, on a envie de poser la question, quand on est un grand site e-commerce et qu'on est déjà parvenu à avoir une visibilité, un volume d'affaires sur le marché domestique, comment est-ce qu'on perçoit l'international? Quels sont les premiers problèmes qui se posent? Et comment on peut se projeter dans un développement international. Et pour répondre à ces premières questions, Je me tourne vers Thierry Petit qui va se saisir d'un micro.
Oui, bonjour à tous. Je vais vous présenter très rapidement Showroom Privé pour peut-être me mettre là d'ailleurs, ce sera plus parce que l'écran devant. En quelques mots, pour repasser Showroom Privé dans un contexte, comment on s'est construit et comment on se développe, sachant que l'international a une part très importante dans notre développement. Après, en quelques mots, je vais vous dire ce en quoi, pour nous, l'Europe a été et sera une très belle opportunité de développement, et comment on l'a appréhendé, et puis ma vision un peu sur le développement, en tout cas, d'un point de vue extrêmement pratique. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on a fait, quels ont été un peu les freins, où on en est, et les différentes stratégies qu'on peut mener. Je vais essayer d'être rapide sur la présentation. Très vite, Showroom Privé, c'est une boîte que j'ai co-créée en 2006 avec des spécialistes du déstockage. Moi, je suis, pour ma part, entrepreneur Internet. On combine du coup les deux ADN nécessaires à ce métier, à la fois retail, la connaissance des marques et de leur circuit de déstockage, leur circuit de distribution, et la connaissance du média Internet. On est, chose assez rare et unique en Europe, autofinancé et profitable depuis le début. On a cependant fait rentrer un fonds d'investissement en 2010, il y a pile 3 ans, qui est Accel Partner, qui est un gros fonds d'investissement américain qui finance par ailleurs, qui est au début de Facebook, qui est dans Dropbox, Etsy, dans plusieurs projets, pour du coup nous aider à accélérer la croissance. Parce qu'en 2010, quand ils sont arrivés, on faisait à peu près 80 millions d'euros. Donc, notre modèle est un modèle de vente événementielle. Notre croissance est fortement tirée par la mode, et notamment l'univers de la femme, donc prêt-à-porter, accessoires de mode, chaussures. Mais on a également ouvert d'autres segments comme la maison. Ça représente à peu près 70% de notre chiffre d'affaires. Si on place par rapport au prisme européen, l'Europe était extrêmement importante parce que les marques de mode sont mondiale, enfin européenne, voire mondiale. Donc il était absolument évident qu'il fallait qu'on se développe à l'Europe, ne serait-ce que pour travailler l'accès B2B de notre produit. On a réalisé un chiffre d'affaires de 250 millions d'euros en 2012, avec quasiment 70% de croissance, et on va finir l'année sur à peu près 350 millions d'euros de chiffre d'affaires, dont quasiment 25% sont d'ores et déjà faits à l'international, ce qui va représenter pas loin de 100 millions d'euros cette année, sachant qu'on a commencé l'international en 2010, donc ça fait seulement un peu moins de 3 ans. On a commencé par l'Espagne, l'Italie, on a ensuite ouvert l'Angleterre, l'année dernière les Pays-Bas, la Belgique, le Portugal, la Pologne. Ensuite, là, on est en train de viser un tout petit peu plus loin, encore plus compliqué, puisqu'on réfléchit à lancer Showroom Privé au Brésil fin 2013, début 2014. Donc, plus qu'un simple site de vente événementielle, on se considère vraiment comme une plateforme qui connecte des marques qui ont un besoin de déstockage en volume et des consommateurs à travers différents canaux d'interaction. Bien sûr Internet, mais on a également une très forte traction sur mobile. On le verra tout à l'heure, c'est un axe de développement très fort chez nous. On a également gardé un réseau de magasins physiques en France, en Europe, voire encore plus lointain, en Australie par exemple. Et puis on a un magasin en propre de 1000 m² à Paris dans le 8e, donc ce qui nous permet d'offrir aux marques finalement une stratégie de déstockage à la fois très confidentielle, on peut faire du 8e arrondissement, très mass market à travers notre site, ou de façon plus ciblée à travers notre réseau d'outlets. Voilà rapidement, c'est également, pour finir sur les chiffres, quasiment 500 collaborateurs recrutés en 5 ans, et on maîtrise l'ensemble de la chaîne, donc du sourcing au service client, en passant par la production, la supply chain, etc. Rapidement, donc, nous on se considère vraiment comme une plateforme. D'un point de vue consommateur, c'est 13 millions de membres en Europe, principalement des femmes, autour de 25-49 ans, avec un très fort taux d'engagement, puisque près de 80% du trafic est gratuit et 75% du chiffre d'affaires est fait par nos déjà acheteurs. Donc ce fort taux d'engagement, ce qui fait à peu près 5 commandes par an, est lié aussi à notre métier qui consiste à effectivement proposer des offres renouvelées tous les jours. Et puis dans un segment, on est sur la mode et le petit prix, qui est finalement le secteur qui génère le plus de repeat après l'alimentation et la culture. D'un point de vue B2B, notre métier consiste à offrir à des marques des solutions de déstockage vendues en volume. Donc on travaille avec à peu près plus de 1500 partenaires, dont quasiment 1000 sont pas français, donc ça veut dire européens ou mondiaux, donc ça c'est un point important. On a, quand bien même on est concentré sur la mode et les accessoires, on a ouvert d'autres segments comme les jouets, la cosmétique, le voyage, et on organise environ 10 ventes par jour. On a vendu à peu près 15 millions de produits l'année dernière. On a travaillé énormément quand on a un concurrent très gros que vous connaissez tous et que je vais m'empêcher de citer pour lui faire de la pub dont il n'a pas besoin, travailler des canaux disruptifs en tout cas. Le premier a été d'offrir un service de livraison en 24 heures demain chez vous, quand on sait que les délais dans ce secteur sont d'environ 3 semaines. Donc ça a été un levier qui a fortement contribué à notre croissance. Le deuxième, une stratégie très axée sur le mobile, avec près d'1,5 million d'apps téléchargées. On est le 7e site marchand en termes d'audience. Et d'ores et déjà, on réalise plus de 30% de nos commandes et plus de 40% du trafic, 50% d'ailleurs sur août, sur mobile. Et ce qui est très intéressant, c'est que cet aspect-là est à la fois valable en France, mais également dans tous les pays en Europe. Donc voilà rapidement sur la présentation. Alors pourquoi l'Europe a été extrêmement stratégique pour nous? Pour plein de raisons. La première, c'est que, vous l'avez compris, on évolue sur deux marchés. Les consommateurs qui veulent des marques et les marques qui veulent du volume. Pour avoir du volume, il faut des consommateurs. Pour les consommateurs, il faut des marques, etc., etc. Vous avez compris, c'est un cercle vertueux. Il nous fallait être capable d'aller chercher ces volumes. Ça a été beaucoup plus facile de s'étendre en Europe pour aller chercher les volumes complémentaires quand vous avez effectivement un acteur qui est très fort sur le marché français et qui est par ailleurs pas si fort que ça en Europe. Donc du coup, ça a été a priori plus simple de se développer sur l'international, atteindre cette fameuse taille critique qui nous permet d'avoir accès à des marques comme Nike ou Puma, par exemple. Premier point. Le deuxième point, justement, si on voulait avoir accès à des marques comme Nike ou Puma, on devait être international. Également, ensuite, l'axe international nous a permis de monter les équipes de sourcing dans les pays, donc du coup, pour dealer des accords locaux. Ce qui était aussi fondamental, puisque finalement, chaque marque a sa propre stratégie de déstockage. Parfois, c'est très cadré, parfois absolument pas. Parfois, il y a des accords européens, parfois, il y a des accords par pays. Donc, il nous fallait être au plus proche des marques. Ça, c'était un premier point, une vraie opportunité pour le présent, pour le passé et pour bien sûr pour le futur. Sachant qu'on considère que maintenant, le marché est vraiment, véritablement européen, quand bien même il y avait à peu près 90 sites en 2006 qui ont voulu se lancer dans le secteur de la vente événementielle. Maintenant, en France, il y en a 2 ou 3 qui subsistent. Et quand on regarde d'un point de vue plutôt européen, on est 3 ou 4 à se battre parce que finalement, on est dans un marché d'offres et de demandes avec un axe très fort, vous l'avez compris, sur le B2B. Donc, c'était hyper important d'être en Europe. Comme on l'a fait de façon extrêmement pragmatique. Déjà, nous, on a toujours cru à l'Europe. Alors, on est des Européens convaincus, on adore l'Europe. Tout le monde raille sur la vieille Europe qui décline, qui est toute naze, qui n'a plus de croissance. En fait, vous l'avez vu, c'est le premier marché au monde sur l'e-commerce. Donc voilà. Alors après, c'est extrêmement compliqué, c'est un marché très fragmenté. Il y a plus de 25 langues, il y a des devises dans tous les sens, il y a même des heures différentes, des monnaies, des mesures qui peuvent poser problème quand on est e-commerçant, sans compter bien sûr toutes les complexités de taxes, de TVA, de fiscalité, de régulation du consommateur qui complexifient. Et sans oublier non plus la maturité, c'est-à-dire que quand on prend l'Europe, du sud au nord, on a une maturité qui est croissante, un peu exactement comme la géographie. Donc il pose des vrais problèmes par rapport à des positionnements de marque, de prix, ou des positionnements en termes de services. En gros, les pays du sud, l'Espagne, l'Italie, le Portugal sont très orientés sur le prix. C'est logique, c'est les pays plus jeunes, c'est les pays considérés en Europe comme quasi émergents. Enfin, j'exagère un petit peu, mais grosso modo, comme dans plein de pays dans le monde où les pays sont plutôt jeunes sur le net, c'est des consommateurs qui arrivent par une proposition de prix. Donc, et d'ailleurs, quand on regarde le top 10 des marchands dans ces pays-là, très souvent, c'est des pure players sur des ventes événementielles, sur du couponing ou sur ce type de proposition de valeur. Alors que par ailleurs, tout au nord, en Angleterre, dans les pays scandinaves, sont des pays beaucoup plus matures qui sont arrivés sur le net il y a bien longtemps. Très souvent par des retailers qui ont offert des offres, des retailers brick and mortar qui ont offert des vraies offres. Donc, et du coup, on est plus dans une expérience qui est sur l'offre, sur le produit, sur le service que sur le prix. Quand bien même le prix est bien sûr une donnée importante. Donc déjà, rien qu'entre les deux, et encore une fois, quand on regarde le top 10 de ces sites-là, finalement, hormis Amazon et eBay, vous avez que des acteurs mortards qui existent déjà dans le pays. Et puis en France, on est, comme la géographie, entre les deux. C'est-à-dire que pendant très longtemps, le e-commerce a été tiré, drivé par des pure players, avec une offre de prix, ou une proposition de prix en tout cas, alors hors Amazon bien sûr, qui est un cas particulier. Et puis là, on voit arriver depuis 2-3 ans tous les retailers. Je prends ne serait-ce que l'exemple d'un Decathlon qui, il y a 2-3 ans, était à la rue. La force de sa marque fait qu'en mettant un peu de moyens, Decathlon monte, récupère des tonnes de parts de marché relativement facilement parce qu'il a une marque, il a des capacités d'achat extrêmement fortes. Donc du coup, ne serait-ce que pour positionner son entreprise à l'échelle européenne, au-delà de toutes les difficultés de langue, de devises, de TVA, de taxes, de tout ce bazar, finalement, il y a aussi une question de maturité. Voilà. Alors après, on n'est pas du tout aidé, parce qu'au fond, quand bien même la communauté européenne, alors là je parle le cas concret, l'Europe n'existe absolument pas d'un point de vue d'un e-commerçant. C'est extrêmement complexe. Chaque pays a ses propres lois. Je vous donne un exemple, l'Italie qui, comme vous le savez certainement, a des petites difficultés, il faut faire rentrer de l'argent, est extrêmement pointilleux et le gouvernement met des amendes dans tous les sens pour récupérer la TVA des sites étrangers. Sauf que du coup, c'est très dur de négocier avec l'État italien. C'est des amendes qui arrivent sans trop qu'on le sache et sans trop être prévenu. Voilà, enfin, on est à l'encontre justement d'un développement, on est sur un marché qui est très gros, mais finalement rien n'est fait du fait de sa fragmentation pour le développer. Et c'est en tout cas une association comme l'EMOTA est là pour essayer en tout cas de prôner le bon discours et d'essayer d'apporter à nos politiques qui sont relativement déconnectés de toute réalité économique concrète des principes simples pour nous aider, nous, commerçants, à nous développer. Donc voilà en quelques mots, et puis après je vais finir sur ça, parce que je trouve ça aussi très intéressant. L'Europe, c'est une formidable opportunité, parce que qu'on soit tout petit ou très gros, on a tous quelque chose à y faire. Vous pouvez avoir un site que vous pouvez traduire avec des outils gratuits. Alors ce ne sera pas parfait, mais ça marchera quand même. Vous pluguez 2-3 flux sur un Google ou un Facebook, et puis vous allez avoir du trafic venant de toute l'Europe, et vous allez vendre, vous collez un transporteur qui est dans tous les pays, vous allez vendre, vous allez faire de l'international. Donc c'est en soi pas si compliqué que ça de le faire. Le faire à une échelle industrielle, bien sûr, c'est plus compliqué pour toutes les raisons données, et puis parce que ça demande beaucoup plus de moyens. Dans une économie, le e-commerce, qui est quand même une économie compliquée, avec des marges qui ont plutôt une tendance à la baisse, avec un consommateur de plus en plus exigeant, donc du coup des coûts encore plus. Donc il y a toute une complexité dans cette chaîne de valeur croissante du e-commerce en Europe, mais ce qui est quand même important à retenir, et si j'ai envie de conserver un angle positif, finalement tout le monde peut le faire. La simple boutique qui est dans une rue traduit son site, ouvre des flux à l'international, colle un transporteur et finalement on va pouvoir vendre en Europe. Donc finalement cette opportunité peut être extrêmement complexe, peut demander énormément de moyens, mais aussi accessible à tout le monde. Voilà ce que je voulais finir.
Merci beaucoup Thierry. Merci beaucoup Thierry pour cette présentation intense, en tous les cas, de votre retour d'expérience sur le marché européen, et puis bien au-delà, puisque avec l'ouverture à laquelle vous travaillez du Brésil, là ce sont des nouvelles frontières qui s'ouvrent. Et justement, quand on parle de cross-border, on parle beaucoup de cross-border en Europe, mais il y a un pays en Europe, l'Angleterre, le Royaume Uni, qui est particulièrement expert en matière de cross-border international, et c'est certainement une de ses particularités. C'est également le pays européen qui pratique le plus. Et c'est la raison d'ailleurs pour laquelle nous allons passer du français à l'anglais pour la présentation suivante, avec James Roper de l'IMRG, qui va nous faire une petite présentation de la manière dont le cross-border est perçu depuis le Royaume-Uni, et nous faire un retour d'expérience d'un certain nombre de marchands qui ont réussi là-bas. Thank you, James, and I let you the floor, and we will keep English as language of discussion after your presentation. So,
thanks, Jean-Rémy. Thank you for being here, and I apologize for speaking in English, but I can't do anything else, I'm sorry. It's a privilege to be here and have a really good audience and be part of this very strong international panel, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the UK market and the international cross-border market. I brought quite a few slides. I'm just going to whip through them very quickly, but they're available to anybody who's interested through Excel. So, my agenda for today, a little bit about the UK, a little bit about cross-border, and then an action plan, what we're proposing to do about it. Okay, IMRG, I founded in 1990, so we've been going for over 20 years. We've got 1,300 members. We are very strong, not just in retail, but we have all of the carriers, the payment providers, legal firms, and all sorts of people who support and enable e-commerce. A little bit of context. The British High Street is having a terrible time. In some towns, the worst towns, the occupancy rate is 70% of their shops are empty. It's not all that bad, but on average across Britain, 14%, 1/4, are empty. Now, before the economic crash in 2008, the average was 3% or less, so it's increased by 5 times since then. And constantly, many of these shops are being converted into houses and other use, so thousands are being lost all the time, and yet the occupancy rate remains at 14%, over 14% empty. And we see that as a long-term trend. The internet is part of it, of course. This is the growth of online shopping in the UK since 2000, April 2000. The big peaks are Christmas, and you can see Christmas keeps getting better for online commerce. Christmas could have been invented for e-commerce in Europe. You got bad weather, people need to buy lots of stuff, and the days are short, and the transport systems are awful, and internet shopping is just so much easier and nicer, and lots of choice and all of those good things. The big change, the big thrust that we're seeing in the UK is mobile commerce. This chart looks at the growth of mobile commerce, which basically didn't happen before the iPhone came to town. And the growth was well under 1% at the beginning of 2010. And in the last results, we saw that 23% of all online sales in the UK are through mobile devices. 80% of that is tablets, but the biggest growth is phones. So we're seeing huge growth in phones. This chart looks at the total online sales. The black line is total online sales, year-on-year growth, and the blue line is if you take mobile out. So what we can say from this is, looking at the total retail market in the UK, all of the growth in retail is online, and all of the growth in online is in mobile. The average basket value, excluding travel, is about £80. And I've put a slide in here. There's a lot of detail. You won't be able to read it, but it is available. Basically, it's looking at online retail with and without travel, high street, multi-channel, and pure play only, and then 12 sectors. And it gives you the average basket values, the conversion rates, the average growth rates, and lots of other useful information. So retailers, if you want a copy of that, grab it from Axel. So a little bit more detail going into what the trends are telling us, average conversion rates, average return on investment on pay-per-click, some detailed stuff that would be of interest to retailers. Okay, global market, it's huge. It's about 10% of all online sales globally, which is over €1 trillion in 2013. Over 10% of that is online, and that will treble by 2018. So we've got 120 million people worldwide shopping cross-border, and the growth rate is impressive, it's 20%. The UK alone is shipping 160 million parcels a year outbound from the UK, been a phenomenal success for British merchants. And it's a good job too, because the UK market is fairly saturated, so everybody needs to continue to look for growth, and they're finding that growth in cross-border sales. Markets are dominated by Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, Rakuten, and others, and there are lots of challenges, as Susanna was talking about a few moments ago. So if you look at the total sales in the UK cross-border, 3 years ago, 2011, less than 3% of our sales were cross-border, and now it's 6% and growing. So you can see how fast that's growing. This has been taken on as a major project by the British government, who are really getting behind it via the UK Trade and Investment arm, which is the bit that looks at shopping and much else on the international market. So we, last Thursday, and I'm delighted that Jean-Remy was in London to help us launch this, we've created a new report looking specifically at serving merchants. We did this for our UK members, so it's very much targeted at our UK domestic market, but we've spent a lot of time figuring out what practical or useful, real things could we give them that they hadn't got. And the main thing that we came up with was a top 20 target list of countries that we're suggesting that British merchants could target. And it's a mix of both countries where they're doing a lot of trade already, and some of the interesting target countries that are maybe not big yet, but they're emerging and have lots of potential. A couple of interesting things just to point out here. Part of the targeting is language. So as you would expect, being the UK, United States is top of the list by miles. Australia is number 2. And if you look at the red-hot British fashion retailer, ASOS, they're now the #1 fashion retailer in Australia. And Nick Robertson, the founder, said to me recently, if you'd said 5 years ago that they would be the top fashion retailer in Australia, they would not have believed it. They didn't think it would have been possible. But they're also getting, I think, 65% of their sales now cross-border, America, Russia, China. They're going out all over the world. And this is being used as a bellwether, and a lot of people want to copy what they're doing. So we've got China, Russia, Germany, France, Turkey, Ireland, Poland, and the list goes down. And then in the report, we provide specific information about each of those countries as to why we're suggesting them. We're big into data. E-commerce gives you lots of data, and we try and collect it. And we're working with our partners through EMOTA. IMR Smart is a vehicle that we've created. And we've now got 10 countries working with us to collect data. The latest ones are Brazil, and I'm delighted that we had the head of the Brazilian Association over with us in London last week, and also Ireland, who've recently joined forces with us. So what's the action plan? Our action plan is to work together. I mean, sales in Europe are... There are problems, and Susanna was talking about some of them. But it kind of works. There's trade happening. The really big, interesting stuff for all of us, I suggest, are China, India, Russia, Brazil, and the other big emerging countries. And I think that Europe, if we work together and join forces and get our logistics and our systems and our trust schemes and all of the other things that are really important to consumers around the world, we can go out and hit the really big international growing markets to the great advantage of Europe. And that's our plan. So, enough from me. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, James, for this presentation of the UK market, this quick presentation where we see that clearly when you start with cross-border e-commerce in Europe, you can go up to international e-commerce, which sounds quite exotic for us in France, because we already consider that going to Europe is a good start and a tough beginning. So going abroad and getting international is probably the next step after the first step. But still, it's very interesting to have your experience and your feedback about this vision. We have a very special guest today from representing Scandinavian e-commerce. Both are coming from Sweden. Thank you to be here in Paris today. Just a word, because recently there is a report that just has been published in French about e-commerce in the Nordics. I think that the person in charge of this report is in the room, so I make a little advertising for this report. You can download it on the Axel website. It's free access. And it's very interesting as it shows what are the opportunities of these markets. And maybe we can have first a quick presentation of this Swedish market, and very linked with the cross-border with other Nordic countries, as Suzanne underlined in the beginning. Then after that, we will have an experience of an e-commerce in Sweden, DesignOnline, which will give us an overview of what it means to go international when you are in Sweden, and how you see different markets and different European markets. So please, Johan, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. Is it working? Yeah?
It should.
Yeah.
It will. Soon. And no, is it up?
Try it.
Yes. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Johan Eriksson, and I represent the Swedish E-tailing Association. We've been around for, I think, about 40 years now, 41 maybe. Mostly, but mostly distance selling, actually. This year we're expecting about 19% growth in the Swedish market. And what we're doing is that we are strategically doing industry development for the Swedish digital retail. And that's the goal for the association, so to speak. So what do we do there? We do business intelligence, and we are actually a part of this report. So we are one of the partners, or we are the partner for PostNord. And we do various type of reports, of course, just to be able to support the industry in terms of doing the strategical choices. We are also organizing a couple of events, and you are very welcome to join us at our Nordic events later, or actually 2014 in January. We have a big event the 13th of January in a place called Borås, which is like the mecca for e-commerce in Sweden. We also, of course, trying to drive the different type of politics, and we also do lots of sort of task forces, and we do reports around payments and security. All these type of things that we actually can see are boundaries into sort of making better cross-border trade. And we're also building competence. And in the middle we have a trust mark, which is then working in Sweden and in Norway. And I would say that many people see that this is a huge necessary for going into this market. So how does the market look like? It's pretty fragmented. We say that we have about 10,000 e-tailers registered. Among them, we normally say that 1,000 of them actually go to work. So they have that as a proper job, so to speak. We have about 100 members, and then we have 650 Trustmark members. And also we have 130 business partners, which is then very good to get associated with if you are looking into the Nordic market. And this is our purpose of being. I think we try to simplify the world as much as possible for our members. I've been the other day to Brussels talking about the digital revolution a bit, and I think this is very, very important to recognize that we are in a digital world right now, and we are not just in a digital world, we are very, very connected. And normally we talk about the consumer empowerment, and you have that as a theme here in Paris as well, and I think that's a very, very important thing to bring on if you're going to go into the Nordic markets as well. We have very high internet penetration, and people are very well connected. So the voice of the customer is super important. And we're trying to define the customer age because they're always connected. We have the social media, and you also have the abundance of merchandise. So the shift of the power is actually then very much into the hands of the consumer. What does that mean to be a corporate doing digital business in Nordic countries then? That means that you have to be authentic. You can't lie anymore, so to speak. And we come up from the Swedish retail organization, the Swedish trade organization as well. And we always tell these guys that you have to be digital, much as in the UK area. And we have to focus on the one-to-one relationship with the customer. This is more or less what we're trying to display as the customer decision journey. And one thing that sort of separates us a bit is that we are very, very Google-driven. That means that we don't have the eBays. Well, we have, but they're not as strong. We don't have the Amazons as starting points. We have Google, and that's normally where you need to invest just a bit anyway. But that also means that it's a sort of very, very word-of-mouth driven and socially driven customer journey in the Nordic countries. And I think that's very, very important to bring into your decisions of going there. Yeah. Again, here's empathizing on the social media. So what type of drivers do we have for the e-commerce? And of course, there's the price transparency. It also drives the e-commerce in the Nordic countries. We have much bigger and better assortment. Of course, there's a convenience. If it rains, and it rains a lot, then we have long winters as well. Then you can do the couch surfing instead. But it's also about actually not, you don't have to be as engaged. You can be, in terms, anonymous when you're doing the shopping. And I don't mean just like strange stuff, but if you live in a small town, maybe you don't want to display that you're looking for a new car or whatever it could be. So these are actually the drivers. And since we are part of this report, everything is sort of coming out from there as well. This is the year-on-year growth. I think we're going to land somewhere 36, 37 this year, which is a fairly good growth. Normally, we're measuring only the merchandise, so no travel. We're not measuring digital services or anything like that either. It's just sort of package-based business, this. And in terms of penetration into the total overview market, I think we are about 15% here, which is then pretty strong, actually. So we have about 70% buying online, and also more or less the whole market is growing in terms of the businesses. So I think that quality-wise we are pretty much up there, and everybody's tagging along, so to speak, in the market. We see some tremendous growth in sport and leisure, especially in terms of clothing. It used to be a quite small sector, and it grows very, very rapidly. And then, of course, you have the home electronics, and you have the apparel and such. But I think that's quite significant for the Swedish market, that the Swedish consumer can pick up new segments and new trends quite rapidly. It's good for you to know, yeah? We also have some figures around the Nordic market. And we have quite a high yearly spend. Normally we say it's due to the Norwegian oil, but let's hope that the rest of the countries also have some money to spend. And the average for the average age is pretty much right in the middle of the demographics as we can see it. It's also, this is a quite interesting figure as I see it. 8 out of 10 were online, but then you also have that 3 out of 10 is actually doing repeated sales every month, which then points to a very strong loyalty factor. So again, in the Nordic markets, We have the home electronics, that's the strongest one in the overall Nordic markets. We have apparel, and then we have furniture. We also have some new trends, and we're talking to Tesco, which is they have like this type of concepts in South Korea, where you're buying the food in the subways. And we are also having some small food shops doing this type of rollout. So that means that you can actually go and buy your food with your mobile phone and get it shipped back home. And I think this is also a very important position. People are nowadays expecting companies to be more and more diversified and into multi-channels. And that's also something that actually grows loyalty. People normally say that if you go into a store, then you can do some impulse-driven purchase. But you normally also do that in mature markets, as in Sweden, online. And all in terms of showrooming and these type of factors. That's really important in the offline world. Normally they say that they do the both. So if they plan to buy something in store and then buy it offline, they can do vice versa. All right. Now I think I stop. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. The question is now, how is it from the point of view of an retailer in Sweden to improve its business in Europe? I will ask Jörgen, right? Okay. And after that, we'll have the debate. So could you tell us more about your e-commerce website and how you're dealing with the cross-border aspects? I'm not certain that every French people here in the room know about Scandinavian design, but I'm certain that you will say a few words about it as you launch soon, I think, in France.
Thank you, Sean. I want to take the information down to the what you do in practice when you start. We started out our company in 2003 with the naive thought that it was easy to go abroad. We started out with one English and one Swedish website, selling Scandinavian design home interior products to 70 countries, which was a little bit naive, I would say, but I didn't know better at that time. So the point is, you learn over time, and there are so many things that you learn, and one of the most important thing is that you never know everything. Be sure about that. I'll take you around some of the things that we experienced along the way. And I would say we have always believed in making a good research before we do anything on a foreign market. And so we have done all our research before. But and always it has been that we have to do more research and readjust all over the way. We found out very quickly that legislation is a vital issue in every country, and every country wants to protect their consumers because they are not knowing what they're doing. And that is really something that is different to every country. It's based on the fundamental belief of how much you want to protect your consumer and also what kind of tradition that is in that particular country. We knew very quickly that payment methods has to be localized, and this is really something that is hard for us in Scandinavia because the infrastructure is not dealt with in that way. If you talk about payment service providers, they do not offer acceptance of carte bleue, for instance, in France here, and they do not offer laser cards on Ireland and so on. So there is definitely a problem, especially for a small country like ours. Those cultural aspect has not been dealt with here today, but I think they are really important to understand. Every country has their own cultural aspects. I can tell you that I've been around here today and I noticed that more or less everything is orange. I don't know whether you are reflected on that, but even the colors are different with different countries. So if you go out in the fair hall here, you can see that lots of colors are orange, green, blue, really strong colors. We do not have that kind of strong colors in Scandinavia on the website. So even that you have to localize when you do your own site. At least take into consideration, I think. And also, I mean, we just changed the color of a buying button from orange to green, and we met about 10% increase in sales, which is, you can think of. It's important to do the A and B testing, of course. It's also about doing business, which is different in different countries. In Germany, for instance, we noticed very quickly that people want to buy the whole showroom and bring it back home and ask us to pay for the returns, which is really expensive, of course. But that's their habit, and the transports in Germany is fairly cheap. But for us, living in the outskirts of Europe, it's more expensive, so it's not a good idea, of course. But we have to comply. We have logistics challenges, of course. The expectations are different. In some countries, like in Japan, where we have thousands of customers, we really need to deliver on time. If we don't, they never come back to us again. I went to Japan to study the logistics issues, and I can tell you this is really something fantastic. They, at one of the biggest catalogers, they had a section for taking in from the suppliers furniture, for instance. They had 20 persons sitting there, got the feeling of the surface of a furniture with white gloves on, feeling if there was any little thing on that surface that was not okay, they just returned it. They mounted the furniture into the setup it should be, and they, after that, dismounted and put it on the shelf. Then it was ready for sale. So there's a total different way of doing business in some countries. You have to adapt. The importance of trust marks, nothing new to you, I guess, but it really has a great importance on conversions. And, of course, lots of trade obstacles. We found out that we needed, for instance, set up a virtual office in Germany. Someone called me on December 22nd, 2009, and told me, if you don't have a virtual office before December 31st, we close your website. Oh, you can imagine how you feel a couple of days before Christmas Eve, standing there without no information how to do. But we managed. We also need to set up a subsidiary in Norway, which is not the EU, of course, but it's a neighbor country to us, and it calls for certain special procedures, of course. It's costly, it takes some time, and it's not very easy done. The same in Denmark. Another thing that we have experienced so far is the procurement agreements with the suppliers is something really vital for you who haven't done this before. Because if you're entering an international market, you're entering a market with different situations, legally, not to say one of the most important things. The infringement trademarks issues. Do they have support for the trademarks, the product names they have in different countries and so on? Very, very important. It didn't take more than 1 year before we had, oh, well, I said half a year before we had our first infringement process in Germany. So just because of using a name that somebody else had registered. So you have to establish agreement back in the supply chain so they will take responsibility for all those kind of things. VAT has been mentioned before here, of course, but also, as I said about the supplier, as you are selling not only things that you have in stock, but also things that you will have in stock in 5 days or 2 days or whatever, it's very important to set up a good agreement of that, because my experience is that out of 100 suppliers, I guess at least 95 of them doesn't understand e-commerce. They understand brick and mortar stores. And if you don't have a product in a brick and mortar store, it's not a problem. But if you have it on your site and you don't have it in stock, it can be a problem. My key findings here is that you, of course, as I said initially, you have to do a thorough market analysis. You have to act after the principle that all business are local. You have to localize your site by all means. Small little things, I should say, not big things always. Like the tone in the language, for instance, flags, whatever. If people appreciate flags, for instance. Of course, make use of trust marks. That's really important because people want to get rid of anxiety. The culture dimensions, think about that. What are the dimensions there? How quick do you want your parcel? In Norway, for instance, we can send things to Norway and it takes 6, 7, 8, 10 days. They don't ask about it. But if you do send it, if you promise 2, 3 days to Germany, it will become a problem if you don't fill that up. Major payment, not to say, very important. The more payments and localized payments you have, the more business you get, of course. And not the least, comply with local laws. Very important. I didn't know that, I don't know how it is now, but I know that previously you had certain times of the year here in France that you were able to have sales, and you have to report that to the local authorities. We do not have that in Sweden, so it's very easy for us to just say sale whenever. So, but if I understand things correctly, you have to pay a fine, or at least it used to be that way, if you go outside those time frames. Is it so? Somebody knows? Yeah. To wrap up, be humble. It isn't easy, but I want that you walk out from here and tell yourself, I will never go abroad. Because it's really fun, and it's really rewarding, and the potential is enormous. I can say for 2-3 years, we have all our growth in our sales abroad. Our market is fairly small in Scandinavia, but we have all our growth from international markets like Korea. I don't know whether you know, but Korea has a free trade agreement with EU, which give them Koreans a possibility to buy from EU products without no tax, up to a certain level. So it's booming. Australia, the same. Very good. So take the chance while you can, and go abroad. But do your market analysis first. Okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you. And to finish this turn of Europe e-commerce, I would like to give the floor now to Christoph Wenk-Fischer for a presentation about BVH without presentation without presentation, which is good too. So, thank you.
Merci bien, Jean-Rémy. Je crois que vous êtes un peu fatigué déjà. So let me wake you a little bit up. Let me wake you up in English because I'm able to follow French, but I can't speak it so good. So if you want to ask questions afterwards, vous posez les questions en français, si vous voulez. So, something about the German market. Germany is maybe dominating Europe as I read the newspapers. We had elections recently, as you know. Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, maybe of Europe? No. I hope she will not be Chancellor of Europe one day. In fact, we are talking about e-commerce and we are talking about cross-border business. And that's something which is very special in Germany. Special because German customers are special, German legislation is special, and the German merchants are special. So let me first give you some boring figures, some more figures about the market in Germany. How big is the market? Have you any suggestions? Just the e-commerce market in Germany. 40, 45, yes. We expect 45 billion euros this year. Just the sale of goods. We differentiate between the sale of goods and of services or digital goods. So just the sale of goods, B2C, 45 billion euros this year. It's a huge market, so it should be worth going there. But it's somehow complicated. Why? It's complicated because the German market is a vivid market between A and Z. What does this mean? It means we do have, at the moment, two real big players in Germany. One starting with the A, Amazon, and one starting with the Z, Zalando. These two companies are completely different, but they are somehow dominant in the market. Dominant in the market because Amazon really in Germany is dominant. We make a big consumer survey each year. It's called Interactive Trade in Germany. And we ask 40,000 consumers about their consumers' behavior buying e-commerce. Buying e-commerce. And what we found out in the last 2 quarters is that Amazon and online marketplaces in Germany means Amazon dominate the market. Nearly 50% of the whole turnover is generated by online marketplaces in Germany. And 80% to 85% of this is dominated by Amazon. So the German market is an A market. But don't have fear. I will continue. So now coming to Amazon, something is interesting. Amazon is, for the German market, a cross-border business. Why? Because Amazon is seated in Luxembourg. Amazon is not a German company. Amazon's subsidiaries in Germany are small ones. They are just handling logistics. But Amazon is a company from Luxembourg and dominates the German market. So we are prepared for cross-border business, and we are prepared for French companies as well. The other point is cross-border from Germany. And now I come to Z, Zalando. Zalando is quite astonishing, exciting, because Zalando is a German company, started 3 years ago nearly, and now is one of the big players in Germany. And in the last 2 years, Zalando made a real big expansion to the whole of Europe nearly. It already arrived in Switzerland, and when it arrived in Switzerland, after 1 year, 25% of the market share was Zalando's. They were the winners. 1 year, just 1 year. The Austrian market, Susanne comes from Austria, maybe she knows more about this. The same phenomenon. Zalando came to Austria and is nearly dominating the Austrian market. So we are dominated by A, and we are dominating the European market with a Z. Well, what are the goods sold most in e-commerce in Germany? First of all, and that's not surprising for you, apparel, clothing. In the last quarter, nearly 3 billion euros in sales of clothing were made in Germany. What's the number 2? What do you think? Any suggestions? Books, Germany, a nation of culture. Books, yes, really. It's true, not e-books, physical books, real books, paper, is number 2 in the sales in e-commerce. Number 3, shoes. We've been talking about Zalando. Number 4, consumer electronics. And number 5, image, sound, media, CDs, DVDs, and so on. So that's Germany. What else is special about the German market? We've been talking a little bit about payment. payment is quite complicated in the German market because nearly 50% of all payment is made pay per bill in Germany. Not electronic payment, not payment in advance, pay per bill. That's a special situation in Germany. I think we are the only ones in Germany where pay per bill is so huge as a payment method. And that's quite interesting because, as you know, Germans are quite concerned about data protection, privacy. Pay per bill only works if you know your customer. And to know your customer, you need data. And that's a point which doesn't fit for me together. One is the concerns about privacy of the German customers, and the other thing is the German customer prefers pay per bill. So that's a point we have to talk about. Maybe we can discuss afterwards on this panel. Another thing is the level of consumer protection in Germany is very, very high. Sometimes I think if Europe is planning new legislation, they just have a look at the German position and they just copy it. I think this is the wrong way, but it's a fact at the moment. Well, another thing is if you really want to go to Germany, you have to speak German. With an English website in Germany, you can't make business. That's different to Scandinavia, quite different. The Germans only buy German, and they buy most preferred from websites with the .de top-level domain. So you have to speak German, and you have to have a top-level domain .de. Another thing, the Germans are always concerned about everything. So what do they need? They need trust. If you want to be successful in Germany, you have to have a trust mark for your website. There are 5 different trust marks in Germany. They are joined in a so-called trust mark board. They work together somehow. They are competing, but they work together in the measure of standards they use. So to be successful in Germany means to speak German and to have a German trust mark. That's quite important for the market. What else is important? The infrastructure in Germany is quite good, like in France. So the German customer is already used to get the goods instantly. 24 hours delivery nearly is standard in Germany. If you want to get the German customer, the point of delivery is quite important. You don't have to deliver within the same day or 24 hours, but you have to be reliable in your delivery. If you promise you deliver in one day, you have to. If you promise you deliver next Monday between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, that's okay for the German customer as well. But you have to be reliable in this. So, something more about Germany? Well, I'm proud of German-French friendship. We are in the 50th year of the German-French friendship treaty. So I really want you to come with your business to Germany. That's the best way to keep friendship, to make business together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation and introducing, in fact, the debate that we can have now. And my very first question will be simply, what can be positively done quickly to improve our cross-border e-commerce in Europe? What would be the #1 proposition you would ask for, being certain that it would improve cross-border e-commerce in Europe? Would it be label, for instance, quality labels? Would it be to make an evolution about delivery? Would it be an evolution about payments? What would be your first answer to such a question? Who wants to start to answer this question? Jürgen.
Well, from my perspective, I think it's to get around the fact that we think that everything is local. There are so many good things to find out there. So great inventory to find that can make everything happen. There are people out there who want to sell things, and why aren't we there? The potential is there. Of course, there are lots of hurdles, but the potential is definitely there, so why wait? Nothing happens while we're waiting. So just do it.
Thank you. Other proposition? Christoph, maybe? Or Suzanne?
Yeah,
Suzanne.
but maybe again from a Brussels perspective, as you called it, to continue insisting on the harmonization of the legal environment. This is very important. Of course, the cultural differences and the language differences will always be there, and we start learning to live with. You have given good example. But to continue lobbying also at national level that there is a necessity to harmonize the rules, that would already very much improve the situation, I'm sure.
Thank you.
And the European, sorry if I can add that, the European Commission is quite aware of that. That's part of their raison d'être to create European rules. The problem lies sometimes at the level of the member states. So it's also very important to make national governments aware of the favor they would do to businesses if they agreed to harmonize the rules coming from Brussels, and not to be afraid that they would lose too much of their sovereignty. Thank you.
But just to be a little provoking, do you think that the European Commission can do something? As obviously Europe is very fragmented, and the feeling is often that in some way they are creating new rules, making it harder to go through. So in some way, something is said that they're improving and asking for improving e-commerce cross-border, but as a matter of fact, they don't. So do you really think that we have to wait that European Commission is doing something, or should we as players do something for real and to make it happen? And after that, maybe they will be happy that it happened, but it would be on our side that we would have started to do this.
I can fill in and say that something happens, even if you don't always think so. There is an organization within the EU called Solvit, S-O-L-V-I-T, that takes care of opinions you have locally and get them around in the system to erase the problem. And I know for sure that they have succeeded in many cases. Among them, one case in Poland, for instance, where you're not entitled to spare and save customer data outside Poland. As if you have your server here in France and you get Polish customers, you're not allowed to store those data here. But they've taken that hinder away. So I know for sure they're doing things. So remember Solvit. If you have any problem, there is a Solvit organization in every country.
Good. Christoph, what's your feeling about this point?
I don't know how you think about it, but in Germany, I have the feeling that politicians sometimes think of the internet of being the land of evil, still. And I think the point is that we still have to convince the politicians on a national level and on a European level as well that our industry is the driving force for retail and is the driving force for the European progress as well. And that we have to be proud of being Europeans. I told about Germany being dominated by Amazon, an American company with its subsidiary in Luxembourg. I think we need a real European market. And that's not the point of the politicians at first. It's our duty to create this market, really to do cross-border business, in spite of all the obstacles. But I think we have to start it.
Suzanne?
Maybe if I can add to this, yeah, the important point is really the constant dialogue with the authorities, or with the lawmakers. So that's what part of the job of European associations and of national associations, and that's what we are busy with, to tell them what's feasible, what's needed, and what's redundant, where they should not really focus on, because the market can manage better. The market forces will find the right balance. It's not always that regulation is needed, but for that we must constantly be in contact with and draw attention to the problematic areas where they are, and they should not focus on really where there is nothing to do. But the problem, and that's why I mentioned again the national governments, like Christoph said, the Germans think they're living in paradise, but when I follow the discussion sometimes with national parliaments, every country thinks that. In the discussion with the consumer, around the consumer protection directive, I got the impression every country thinks has the best consumer protection in the world. And they have this rule, and their consumers want that. And I often wondered, do the consumers of that country know they have this rule? Were they asked whether they insist on this rule? It's sometimes such an artificial debate also going around, and this is also where we have a role to play to make awareness. So maybe your consumers lose on one provision, but they win others, and they win a huge market where they can shop on. Very important to have this constant dialogue. Thank you.
And what about from a UK perspective on that point? Are you waiting for the European Commission to solve the problem? Because it sounds like in UK you consider that cross-border is a natural function of e-commerce, but then was very surprised last week in London that you started your conference on cross-border with this too long conference about the legislation in Europe, just as if it was something that now was taken very seriously because your e-tailers will have to improve their cross-border e-commerce with Europe. So you have to understand this. But naturally, you are already doing cross-border for years.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we've researched this whole thing to death forever. It's actually easier if you're not a mainstream player. I mean, Amazon has often not complied with British law, and it's a major player. But it almost doesn't matter because as long as the consumer doesn't have a problem, the law is never invoked. And Amazon always makes sure that the consumer has a good experience, so the law is irrelevant to some degree. But if you're a major player like Marks and Spencer's or John Lewis or somebody like that, you can't ignore the law. You have to get it right. You have to take it seriously. And so it's disadvantaging European merchants, the European mess that is currently the set of payments and logistics and price of delivery and the legal system and all of those things that face serious retailers who are getting into this space now. That said, I take the point, just get out there and do it. I mean, the merchant that everybody always refers to in the UK is ASOS. And they've gone out and with a very ballsy proposition. I mean, they've got a global proposition of free delivery and free returns. Now, you have to be pretty bold to take that on. But they're in a special case. They're in fashion, which is very hot. They're in British fashion, which is very hot. And they mainly make their own products. So you can't compare that product with somebody else's product and the pricing and those sorts of things. So I think it's about, you know, the key to cross-border is being unique, having a proposition that the consumer can't easily or sensibly get anywhere else, and just get out there and make it work, test the market. I mean, it's a well-trodden path now. There are a lot of people doing it well. There are a lot of people being successful. There's a lot that we can all copy and learn how to do it. And the fact is that there are people out there having a great deal of success. So the market does work. It's a large market. And I think waiting for politicians is never a good idea. It's up to the industry, and particularly the people on this stage are representing the people, getting on and making it happen.
Thierry, you have 25% business cross-border and ASOS is 65%. So what would you say to governments or European Commission to help you to get there?
I'm totally agree with James. You don't have to wait for politician laws and agreement and regulation around Europe for many reasons. The first one, I think, is that either if they can help us to manage something more easy for the VAT declaration, for example, which is possible to create a law based on some smart things and not to take the German law for the return, which is a damage for all companies in Europe. They can act on something, but at the end of the day, they will not change. They will not put one unique language. They will not put one unique currency, one unique payment method, one unique consumer habit. So it's up to you to take all this Europe potential as a development in a positive way. I mean, you can say, okay, Europe, it's really fragmented, complicated, I wait for the politician, but don't do that. It's already a potential. We have a lot of great success in Europe. There are a lot of potential development just 50 kilometers from your town, so it's great for that. And the difficulty is that it creates a real barrier. So if you are able to launch your company in Europe, in many countries, it creates a real barrier for the potential competitor, except for the American one, because except Amazon, eBay, and maybe 2 other big players, there are not so much big players around all countries in Europe. So, and to finish on that point, if you are waiting for politician, it will take maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years to have a law in the Commission. So in 7 years, 6 years ago, Showroom Privé wasn't created. So if we had to wait 6 years, I mean, it makes no sense.
James.
Just to add a very small point, the fact that it's difficult is part of the opportunity. The reason the internet has moved so fast is because everybody can access it and use it, and every problem out there is somebody's opportunity. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, there wouldn't be an opportunity there.
And do you think that it means something that players of e-commerce internationally gather their efforts to promote this vision? Do you think it's something possible, or do you consider that as there are potential competitors, this kind of European community of players, well, it's our job for associations to imagine that, but do you think that they can really get together and make things happen faster? Christoph.
I hope it works. Yes, it does. Let me give you an example from my association, BVH. We always say that 80% of the problems are common problems of all the merchants. And 20% is competition between the merchants. So there is a big field for working together to really getting an infrastructure in a legal way as well. We need 80% we can do together, and the rest is competition, and the competition is useful as well.
I would say that we also have the integration between the different parts of the value chain. And from a Nordic perspective, for instance, the Swedish Post Nord doesn't yet have an agreement with the DHL for the outbound shipment, which is like a catastrophe for most of them. Now, however, maybe some companies find a way around, but then they're using other type of logistic partners. And I think that the key to reach a fragmented market is actually to do this type of work and start to work together and start to integrate the value chain a bit more in terms of at least logistics, as I see it. Yep. To get the networks going much, much better. In terms of payment systems, probably they're very localized, so I think maybe you don't need to integrate there, but at least get the networks of logistics going, and I think we will have a much better opportunity to work together.
So you think that logistics could be the first step to go further and quicker?
I completely agree with that. I mean, Royal Mail is great, and they provide a great service in many respects. You know, fantastic shipping to Australia and US and other places. But they don't serve well a lot of Europe. So what many of the British merchants are doing, they're injecting their parcel loads by, big multiple container loads directly either into Belgian Post, B-Post, or into Swiss Post. And this is common, and that's fine. And if we can, find the strong points there. I mean, if we all coordinate and between the various countries start putting massively more parcel traffic into those channels that do work and are efficient and are already there, with the volumes going up, the rates will come down, everything will become more frictionless, and get out there and do it. That's the way to build trade. Get out there and make it happen.
Thierry, do you experience this kind of issue with logistics?
Yeah, all our warehouses are based in France. in Saran, close to Orléans, and in the north of Paris. We have 100,000 square meters of warehouse. And we are doing direct injection from this warehouse. And so we prepare the order in France for all the countries. So with the national stamp, with a contract with the national post, for example, for Spain, or DPD for the UK, or a lot of actors. And then we inject, so we mutualize our packages, and we give, to be simple, all the packages to the transporter, to local transporter. We will inject in its network, so it helps us to mutualize our flow, which is, it reduces our cost. We are not selling order per order directly from France to the consumer. Then we are perceived as local, which is really important with a national stamp. And then we have a return solution, which is really aggressive in terms of price, because we mutualize our flow and we do the same thing for the way back. So it's a great solution that works, that totally works. And to begin with this kind of option when you are small, that's true that it's really complicated, because in fact you have to take one truck or mutualize a truck to go to Madrid, for example. So if you don't have a lot of order per day, it means that either you will decrease your quality of service, waiting for some more days to monetize your truck, and then you will reach a critical size that will allow you to be able to have your own truck. And it means that one truck from Paris to Madrid, it means 1,000 euro, and we put inside 3,000 orders. So it means 30 cents of euro more per order, which is really, really competitive. And without having warehouse in Spain, Italy, and so it's a really good way to do cross-border. And I think that most of the merchants in Europe are doing some what we call direct injection, and not door-to-door delivering.
But for smaller players, how could it work? Because when you don't have the possibility to direct inject
You've got some actors that mutualize. DHL will mutualize, for example, 10, 15, 20 small merchants. It will cost a little bit more, but it is accessible for everybody.
And what about the customer service now? Because this is quite an issue because of the domestic laws, of course, protecting the customers, but also because when there is an issue after an order, a cross-border order, the general feeling is that they don't have a quick answer or not in their language. How do you think it is something that can be solved? Is there something that can be done? Because it can be a real barrier and a psychological barrier for the European consumers.
You first.
I just want to say, if you can arrange with a customer service that is impeccable, based on the needs of every country's consumer profile, you will succeed. But you have to know what are the important factors for that country and that culture, I think. But it's vital. There are two things that I think are the most vital parts in e-commerce, and that is delivery on time, whatever time it is, and an impeccable service.
I think a key to this could be a European trust mark. So the standard we already have in Europe, and we will have from next year on, is for the consumer enough, I think. And so we just have to ensure the consumer that this standard is living in all the countries. And the easiest means to do this is to establish a pan-European trust mark. That would be one idea. Or a European trust mark standard. So each customer knows that this European trust mark is identical to the standard given by the merchants or the trust mark organizations. We do have an example in Germany with the D21 trust mark board, for example. But I think a trust mark could really be the clue to this. And another point is the payment. European payment, reliable payment, secure payment for the consumers. And not just one payment method. We need a living, a vivid market of payment methods which are reliable. For example, Germany, paper bill.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I come in at that point. On the trust mark, yes, I guess you wanted me to pick up on that. For the European trust mark, we have already discussed this at European level within EMOTA, and we agreed on a common set of standards which we think every trust mark should fulfill with, so that they can say they are fit for Europe. So, and now we work on the details. You know, the David is always in the details, but we will find a solution, and we very hopefully can offer something in a very short time. On the payments, to pick up that as well, I mentioned in my presentation earlier, the expectations are very different there, but particularly the payments matter has to do with trust, and this has also been mentioned already by you, Johan. And I forgot to mention the fact that in Southern and Eastern Europe, the expectation is still cash on delivery. The people do just not trust. They want this donnant-donnant situation that you have similar in a shop. I get my stuff and you get the money. And this is a trust matter. So the legislation at this cannot do much there. This must develop over time with better offers from the side of the payment service providers, alternatives to cash on delivery that offer the same level of security, or at least for that people would conceive it as that. This is a very delicate matter, the payment, and very difficult to organize.
As there are just 10 to 15 minutes left, maybe there are some questions in the room, and maybe it's time for Q&A. In French or German? Or English. German, English, Swedish, whatever. Can you quickly present yourself just before?
Okay, I will try to do it in English. Sorry for my French accent. So I sell wine on the internet, and my business is already 6 months old, and I already sell in Switzerland, Germany, and Italy, and UK. And I have to confess, I do not bother about legal constraints, only for wine perspectives, because you have specific taxes for wine, so that we care about, but all the rest we do not care. And my question is, would you advise to launch your business? What I understood from all your point of views is launch your business, take the risk to go abroad, and then see, because if you want to protect everything, you will launch after 2 years, 3 years, and you will miss opportunities. So what would be your reaction?
Yeah. I can explain maybe and give a perspective on my experience. We've got 2 phases, international development for each country. The first one consists is doing incubation phases and then development phases. Incubation phases is from 0 to 1 million euro per month, and then after we do a development phases, which is a little bit different. On the first step, we try to, so we recruit a local team, especially for customer service, marketing and sourcing, try to offer a good mix of international brand, local brand, and French brand, which is good in the fashion industry. And then we will try a lot of marketing leverage, and then calculate all the return on invest. And then we will see if it works, if it's profitable, and if it's scalable. After that, we validate all the figures in the KPI. We accelerate our development through massive marketing campaign, through local offices, especially to be more local in terms of marketing, business development, which is really important. Maybe not on the northern Europe, but it's much more important in the south of Europe. Italy, Spain, Portugal are really, it's a small country, everybody knows everybody. You have to be on the country if you want to do a great business development operation, which is possible outside Latin countries. So, and after that, we do more local activity, and then we invest in our brand. So through offline campaign in order to exist in the country. And so we do that. It works very well. We have achieved that in Spain, Italy, Portugal, Belgium. In UK, it's a disaster for us. So We have we have begun the incubation phases, and after we stopped because of all our KPI, we needed really more money, and it's really a matter of maturity. UK consumer doesn't want to wait for more than 5 days. So in our business model, you need to have more delay time. So it was really complicated, and the offer is much more complicated than any other country in Europe. The fast fashion in UK is really, really strong everywhere in the street at a very good price. So it's a very, very competitive market for us. So we decided to not to stop, but to do it like to stay in the incubation phase. So you can do your development through a really pragmatic approach. I mean, because everything is a metric now. So you decide to invest, and then you regard your return on investment, and after if you are profitable, if your costs are very good, if it's okay, and then you will invest more, you will be more local, you will provide more local brand, and so on. So, which is a key for a good development, I think.
Okay. Other questions? Even in French? French is good. So you can ask it in French. That's official.
Thank you first for your all your comments and sharing experience on the cross-border internet. I'm consulting in international development and mostly on internet. Most of my customers I'm working with are faced with a big issue. How much does it cost to go cross-border? And any of you who have been selling, I'm speaking to Mr. Petit, and I'm sorry I didn't remember your name. Have you been profitable since the very beginning? How long did it take you to be profitable? And are you profitable internationally? Or are you able, I guess you are, to measure your profitability accurately?
Well, it's easy to give you an answer on that. It depends. Okay. In our company, we based our development to be able to go abroad in a new country very easily. And if you just kind of take those costs into account that turns on when you start, it's not very much. I think it's about, well, 75,000 euros something. So that's not very much. But if you do a more thorough investment in marketing, and so you have to deal with total different budget, of course. But that's depending fully on what kind of approach do you want to take on the market. If you want to go a slow pace or a very high pace like Zalando, it's obviously a lot of money there.
Thierry, maybe?
Yeah, it depends of your ambition. I mean, as I explained earlier in French, you can do cross-border through a marketplace. And you need no logistics, no marketing. You can do that. You will pay a lot of commission to eBay and Amazon, which is not so good, by the way. But you can do that, and it's not a risk in terms of investment. If you want to be that in an industrial way, it costs much more, and you have to take risk. From my perspective, we are doing at this time, we will do 100 million euro after 3 years. Spain is profitable, Italy is profitable, Portugal is profitable in only 6 months, because there is nobody in Portugal, so it's great for us. Small country, but if you got the huge part of the country, it's really great. And the worst was the UK, and we lose 2 million in 1 year. So, and for the whole international perspective, we are profitable thanks to the Latin country, which are less aggressive in terms of marketing costs, much more easier to penetrate the market, much more close to our products and our way to consume the products. We are Latin, so maybe that's why. So, yeah.
seen from a, let's say, business school point of view.
So
we have been losing a hell of money in UK.
As a lot of French actors, you know.
Yeah, as most local French actors, UK has been extremely tough market. I know
There is
very few companies have been profitable in UK.
Yeah, maybe
in
James will explain, but there is no French experience that has worked yet in UK.
Yeah, La Redoute has been profitable for years in UK, but is no more. It's since 3 or 5
even the big
years.
one, even the Cdiscount, even when Pixmania was supported by their Dixon, so it's a really, really complicated market because it's not only the UK market, it's the English market, which is like, in terms of marketing, really complicated. You compete with really strong actors, you compete with really strong retailer, you compete with, especially in fashion, a strong retail industry, which is totally different than the other one, so it's really, really, really complicated and tricky to be profitable there. But maybe James could have could say why.
why, James?
That's an explanation.
Why is it so tough?
I think the British just love shopping. They love buying stuff. But, you know, you hit on a really, really interesting point. And in e-commerce, it really helps if you can take a longer view. And for me, I've always taken a longer view because I've been in e-commerce for so long. But for me, the real opportunity for Europe now is in the BRIC countries. You know, Brazil, China, these countries. They're tough as hell. They've all got problems. You know, Brazil's got 75% sales duty. China's got all sorts of problems. Everybody's having a go there. Nobody's making any money yet, but by God, they will in the future. And the thing is that if you don't get into those countries now, if you don't crack it, if you don't get the roots in and the logistics pass and all of that, by the time the market becomes relatively easy, the opportunity will be gone because you won't be able to afford to do it. So I think you know, we don't have. In Europe, we haven't produced kind of Amazons and eBays and Googles and you know, the companies that are dominating that for lots of reasons that are well understood. We're coming from a smaller base, which I think it makes it so much more important that we cooperate and work together and see cooperation between the countries to get the critical mass and the strength that we need to go after those big prizes. I think if we start now, within 3 to 5 years, we'll have unlocked them and get some really exciting trade moving.
Thank you. It's, I think it's time. So I don't know if there is a very last question, but if there is not,
Where's the bar?
Where's the bar? That's the very last question. Okay, so thank you very much for all your presentations and for coming to this conference. And thank you for you attending it. And see you soon on next episodes of the cross-border e-commerce movie. Juste une indication, on vous demande de sortir exclusivement par la sortie du fond. Voilà. Merci.